are coming to the Atlanta Motor Speedway, and the Indy Racing League will be the first to test them. Next year on Saturday, August 29th, the IRL makes its first appearance in Atlanta. That gives the league 3 appearances down in NASCAR country.
A lot of people say you can't run Indy cars in the South. It's a hotbed for NASCAR. They just won't welcome you. You know, it failed before. They thought we were crazy for going to places like Texas and Charlotte, and it's a pleasure to be here today because this is really where the idea was hatched.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Kernan. This is RPM Tonight. Benny Parsons will be here in just a moment to talk about Sunday's Winston Cup race at Watkins Glen. And speaking of the Glen, R&L Carriers was pleased with Lance Hooper's 24th place finish in the race. So the former Winston West champ will drive the #1 Richard Jackson-owned Pontiac again this weekend at Michigan. Hooper will continue to drive the car on a race-by-race basis. Speaking of races, it took Jeff Gordon 10 of them, but he finally won on a road course as he took the checkered flag Sunday at the butt of the Glen. Gordon, though, has always run well at Watkins Glen and Sears Point, but his crew chief admits that it took a critical decision by Gordon concerning the gear ratios to enable him to finally win.
He's got a feel. He knows what he's looking for, and it was something completely different from what we'd run. And I really didn't have 100% confidence that it was the right thing to do, but I've got 100% confidence in him. So we did it, and I think that's what makes our relationship special. And, you know, I believe in him, so we went ahead and did it. And as usual, 99% of the time, he was right.
What exactly did he come up with?
Well, I can't tell you that, John. You know, that's something, you know, it was something that he was looking for, parts of the track. I had parts of the track picked out that I knew I had to make the car handle good, and he had parts of the track that he knew what kind of RPM band he needed to be into and where and how much he should be shifting, and together, you know, we came up with a little better combination, I think.
Seems like last year you guys kind of had a little bit of a letdown the last 10 or 11 races of the season. Now you're going in with the points lead. There are 12 races remaining. How do you treat that, or do you even look back to last year?
Well, honestly, if you want to look all the way back to 1993, our rookie year, the second half of the season has not been good to this race team, and that's been getting shorter and shorter. Let's say, you know, maybe the last 10 races of 94 we didn't do good, the last 8 of 95, and about the last 4 of 96, and we've just got to keep figuring out what's going on there until we can get that wiped out, and that's what we're going to work on this year.
In reality, the Rainbow Warriors are in pretty good shape this year. Their chief competition right now appears to be Mark Martin, and in the last 3 years, Gordon has outpointed Martin in the final 12 races all but once. Ray talked about trouble in the last 4 races last year. Jeff averaged a 12.75 finish, while Martin averaged a 4.5 average finishing position. Well, Benny Parsons is here, and Benny, Ray Evernham told me that Jeff Gordon came to work on Sunday morning with his game face on. He says he was as focused as he's ever seen him. It was a pretty awesome performance, wasn't it?
It really was. Jeff Gordon, I guess, really wanted that road course victory to prove that he was an all-round race car driver. I knew it all along. Didn't you know it?
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to see Jeff Gordon on a 1-mile dirt track. They would really prove how versatile he is.
You know, and another thing is, if he maintains that type of focus he had at Watkins Glen, Ray said they're going to be tough to beat for the championship.
Well, they are. If he gets that in his mind, that he really wants the 1997 Winston Cup Championship, and he comes to work with that game face on, and nothing happens for him to lose that focus, they will be hard to beat. But again, Mark Martin, he has that game face on as well, John. It's not just Jeff. There's a bunch of guys out there, Mark Martin especially, that he's got to beat.
Yeah, but Benny, despite strong runs by Mark Martin and Terry Labonte on Sunday, they couldn't gain any ground on Gordon in the chase for the NASCAR Winston Cup Championship. Bill Weber says that made for some interesting stories to develop at the Glen on Sunday.
Jeff Gordon's win at the Glen did more than snap his mini-slump of 4 races without a victory. It revived the feeling that Gordon is once again the guy you'll have to catch if you want the Winston Cup. Gordon got to victory lane in his 10th road course race, completing the cycle of winning at all types of tracks. It was his 27th career win. He's the 20th driver to win a NASCAR Winston Cup race on a road course, and he did it by holding off some veteran, hard-charging road racing rivals.
Rusty made a mistake. He got a little bit loose, and that changed the whole race. I don't know if I could have passed him because he was strong and it was hard to pass. But once I got in front of him, I felt like I could get Jeff. Then he got tired, so he was strong there at the end.
Jeff Bodine battled every lap to defend his win and defend his town. After a week of restructuring his team and reflecting on Indy, this was a firm pat on the back following a stern slap in the face. But was it almost like a win after the week that was?
No, I'm not standing in victory lane. I wish I was. No, it's a good run, It's what we're supposed to do every week, but it isn't a win. With all the financial problems we've had with this team, and it's been a struggle really just to concentrate and go out there and race. Always thinking about money and lack of it. Now I don't have to worry about that with my new partners. We need sponsorship, and we're working on that next year, or for next year right now.
Rusty Wallace had his best finish since a second at Charlotte 9 races ago. Robbie Gordon had his best finish ever, 4th, despite his time-consuming stop-and-go penalty for improper passing on a restart.
It's really unfortunate. You know, we passed a lot of cars. I don't think anybody passed us all day long. You know, all the guys on the Coors Light crew did a hell of a job to get me back up there. We had a good pit stop, and the car handled beautiful all day. It was really good. Really hard to pass people.
I was trying to find any hole out there, any little bit of grip I could get. But we got 3rd, and I'll take that. It was a pretty good run.
You're very physical with the car. You needed that today.
Well, I try to drive as hard as I can, and it worked out okay. Just come up short, though.
Mark Martin tried for the rare road course sweep, 2 road course wins in 1 season, but that hasn't happened since 1988. Martin had to settle for 5th, losing 30 points to the leader and the winner. Still, Martin's consistency is consistent. 13 top 10s in the last 14 races. Terry Labonte rebounded from back-to-back disappointments with an 8th place run, but still lost valuable points.
Today was a lot better than the last 2 weeks we had, but you know, at least we got a top 10, and our car was pretty good. We had some problems with the brakes. We couldn't get in the corners very good, and just had brake problems all day, but we went up with a decent finish. So I was, compared to the last 2 weeks, like I said, I'm happy with that.
We gave it our all today, and we didn't have the track position or the speed that we needed quite. So at the end we were coming, but we weren't any threat to win, I don't think.
Gordon's lead over Martin grew to 109 points with 12 races remaining on the Winston Cup schedule. Despite his disappointing finish, Dale Jarrett remains in the 3rd spot, but he's just 9 points ahead of Terry Labonte. Jeff Burton continues to hold down the 5th spot. He's just 92 points out of 3rd. You know, Benny, I thought that Jarrett was headed to a top 10 finish at worst. Then he got black flagged. NASCAR officials thought he was leaking some fluid out onto the track. Came into the pits, turned out he was not. So my question is, where was all that smoke coming from?
Well, he lost the transmission. He lost 3rd gear in the transmission, and then he started using 2nd gear more than he should have, and he overheated the transmission, and the fluid inside, is what I'm told, the fluid inside just simply overheated and started cooking, boiling, and that was fumes or coming off the oil that you saw. There's a vent on the transmission, and those fumes coming out of the vent, going around the back of the car, and it looked like he was losing oil on the racetrack.
But once he comes in, they check it out, they find out he's not. It's too late. Damage is done. You can't. It's like calling a runner out, and he clearly was safe, isn't it?
I mean, television replays, as far as baseball is concerned, the worst thing ever happened, because sometimes a runner is in fact safe, they call him out, or vice versa. That's another situation that somebody's got to make the decision. They made the decision. Was it wrong? It could have been, but there is no way out of it.
Okay, got another one for you, because I've looked at the tape, and I'm not a NASCAR official, yeah, granted, I'm just a fan sitting at home watching, but I've looked at the tape. I don't see how they could have black flagged Robbie Gordon. They said he was passing Todd Bodine on the right side. So let's take a look at it. He comes along, clearly he's on the right side, but watch this, Benny, when he gets to the start-finish line, boom.
There is a start-finish line. From this angle, it looks like that the 34 car, Todd Bodine, is still in front of the 40. That's the 40 on the left side. Now, folks, you aren't allowed to pass on that side. You aren't allowed to pass on the right side. That's why they black flagged him. You have to do all your passing on the restarts on the left side. But again, from that angle, it looked like that Todd Bodine was, in fact, in front of the 40 car.
Got another restart for you to look at. Benny, lap 65, Rusty Wallace trying to get a run on Jeff Gordon on the outside. Gordon would have none of that, and that wound up benefiting Jeff Bodine.
Rusty tried to get outside of Gordon before the green, and Gordon and he bumped, got Rusty sideways, and I slid around the outside of him. He started to crowd me in the grass, but I appreciate he didn't do that. You know, that was a clean move, and it was just a bad move for him, but a good one for me.
Tried to pass Gordon on the outside in that restart. Run out of room there, and I got bogged down so much. Bodine got past me. I finished 3rd. Track position was everything.
He jumped me a little bit there on the start. I mean, he tried to do the same thing they did to me in Sears Point, and I wasn't going to let that happen again. But, you know, you got to do whatever you can because it's so hard to pass, and so you got to try to make it up on the restarts. And, you know, he did whatever he could, but not today.
I wondered what was going on there when I saw them lining up for that. I said, what is Rusty doing? What is he doing?
Exactly what we're talking about. He was trying to pass on the left side, where it is, in fact, legal if you get a jump on that leader.
Well, in a span of 8 days, Ricky Rudd and his team experienced all the emotions available to a racing team. After winning at the Brickyard, Rudd crashed his primary car in practice at Watkins Glen on Friday and actually just tore it up. That thing's ready for the junkyard. Sunday, his backup car developed problems. Almost immediately, he wound up finishing 40th. Rudd still maintains a top 10 position in the NASCAR Winston Cup point standings, but he drops to 9th this week. And comparing last year to this year, Rudd has 2 more wins at this point of the season, but is 3 spots lower in the points, mainly because he's had 3 DNFs this year. And Benny, finishing races is key to gaining points, isn't it?
Yeah, you got to finish. You know, Mark Martin, Jeff Gordon, they've all had some problems this year, but they fought back and they've run up front. And you cannot have those did not finishes. That's one thing kept Earnhardt. You know, Earnhardt didn't dominate this year, but he didn't have any trouble. Really finished all the laps, and got good finishing positions. That kept him in the point standings.
Well, Ricky Craven's number 25 team had to use another provisional starting position. I believe that's 6 for the 25 team. So I guess they're out of provisional starts, at least for a few more races, right?
Well, they are. Here's how the provisionals work. You're allowed 6 through the first 23 races. Through the first 23 races, you're allowed 6. The first 4, the second 4, that's the same amount. After the 23rd race, beginning the 24th, you can get another one. And after the 31st race, you can get 1 more provisional. Ricky Craven has used all 6 of his so far. So the next 3 races, he will be without provisionals. He'll have to qualify. And you wonder how the provisionals work? They're awarded to the NASCAR Winston Cup owners. That's where the provisionals come from. At Watkins Glen, Ricky Craven's owner, Joe Hendrick, is 22nd in the points. The 75 car, Rick Mast, his owner, Butch Mock, is 29th. The 8 car, Hutch Strickland, his owner, Bill Stavola, is 34th. And Gary Bechtel is 37th in the point standings. That's how they lined up, 39th, 40th, 41st, and 42nd. Yeah, and you have to be in the top 40 in the owner points to be able to get a provisional.
And the other 3 drivers who didn't make the field, they weren't in the top 40, so they were not available, or provisionals were not available to them.
Exactly.
Thank you, Benny. Stick around. We'll talk more with you a little bit later on. When RPM Tonight returns, Damon Hill returns to the front of the pack in Formula One, and Alex Zanardi continues to lead the way in the PPG Kart World Series.
RPM Tonight is being brought to you by Quaker State, the quality your car deserves.
Alex Zanardi has caught fire in the PPG Kart World Series. Sunday at Mid-Ohio, Zanardi patiently waited for Brian Herta to have tire problems. And when Herta's left rear tire blew, Zanardi zipped away to win his 2nd straight race and 4th of the year. It also turned out to be a good day for his teammate as well.
Today, everybody at the Target Children's Racing did a great job.
As the young Italian goes for his 7th career victory, his 4th of the season, and his 3rd in the last 4 races.
This is actually the first time, I wouldn't say maybe the first time, but probably the time where the team did the best job ever. Everybody put 150%, and so today, for the job that the team is being doing, I can really call it championship team. And I guess if we can keep up at this level, we're going to be very, very tough to beat.
Zanardi credited his team for the win, but he should have thanked his car owner as well. A late call from the pits on fuel helped Zanardi maintain his advantage.
We were really pushing to open a bigger gap. We knew we could do it. Chip asked me over the radio on our code whether I could push even harder. I confirmed to him that I had more in reserve. So he said, go for it, go +2 on the gas, and we went, and you know, the gap then was big enough to pit, and ended up on the lead again. So the strategy today was perfect.
Jimmy Vasser posted a 5th place finish, his best since a 4th at Detroit. He couldn't push harder to pick up more positions or battle for the win because of fuel concerns.
We just had to run hard and get up the positions that we could. At the same time, make the fuel mileage. You know, we couldn't really turn up the wick to try to catch up without burning more fuel. So, you know, I think we did a good job under the circumstances. And, you know, it's great for Alex winning the race with the points and all that. And I think we showed some of our old character, you know, hanging in there, fighting from the back of the pack to finish 5th.
Last year, Vasser used a strong first half and a consistent second half to win the title. This year, Zanardi was consistent early, but has caught fire as of late. In the last 4 races, 3 wins and a 2nd place finish. He's climbed from 5th in the points, 16 down to the lead, up by 27 over Paul Tracy. Last week, Tom Walkinshaw's Arrows team announced that test driver Jörg Muller would drive full-time on the Formula One circuit next season for the team. That apparently confirms that Damon Hill will not be back. Reportedly, he's been offered to ride with McLaren, and Sunday's run at the Hungaroring should elevate Hill's worth even more. He proved that even with inferior equipment, he can still get the job done. Hill ran like the defending world champion for the first time all season by dominating at Hungary. Damon took the lead from Michael Schumacher on a lap 11 and held it for most of the race. Then on lap 74 with a 35-second lead over Jacques Villeneuve, disaster struck. Hill's car started to falter and Villeneuve got by with a half lap remaining. Hill finished second. Villeneuve won his 5th of the year.
It was really, really flying, but at the same time I thought, no, there's no way he can finish. I was feeling pretty good, but towards the end of the race, it was looking pretty grim because he was actually going on and on and on until 2 laps on the end where my pit crew told me that he was slowing down. So I started pushing again, and when I got towards him, he was going left and right, so I thought he had a broken suspension, but I knew he was going to block me. It was normal on the last lap, so I just went in the grass, and the car was pretty good in the grass.
Well, I was getting to the point where I thought where I could count on winning the race, but whenever you think things like that, something crops up, and I had a hydraulic pump problem, which meant that I couldn't use the throttle started to work intermittently, and I couldn't change gear, so that was really, I needed 40 seconds really, not 30 seconds on the jack.
Checking out the points, Villeneuve's win and Schumacher's 4th place finish closes the gap to 3 with 6 events left. The battle for 3rd place is just as tight. John Alesi, Gerhard Berger, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen separated by just 3 points. When we come back, we put a spin on the weekend's action. Speed Shots is next.
Speed Shots is brought to you by Quaker State. Motor oil for a clean running engine.
Look at Brian. Brian Herder's tire has shredded his left rear.
Damon Hill's got on the inside. He's taking the second. Jerry cannot believe it. Damon Hill has taken the lead. No, he's in trouble. Frentzen is in trouble. Something went wrong. Oh, no, Damon, what are you doing? Use your mirrors. Damon Hill, clearly the hero of the day.
He now has it. Back-to-back wins at Mid-Ohio.
I'm sure nobody can beat us.
Jeff Gordon gets the lead.
Coming up next on RPM Tonight, Benny Parsons says horsepower and aerodynamics are keys to success at Michigan. Benny Parsons is still here, and you know, Benny, I'm not a big fan of the stock cars on the road courses, so I'm really looking forward to this weekend when they get back on the oval at Michigan. I'm sure some of the guys who didn't run well at Watkins Glen, they're really looking forward to get back on an oval too, aren't they?
I would imagine there's about 3 guys that would like to go back to Watkins Glen. Jeff Gordon, maybe Jeff Bodine, and possibly Wally Dallenbach, because he runs so well on the road courses. But the rest of them, the other 39, let's go to an oval track where they basically grew up on.
And one thing you got to have whenever you get to Michigan, horsepower, right? How important is it?
Well, it's very important. I mean, let's face it, you're going down the straightaway and enter turn 1 at almost 200 miles per hour, so horsepower and aerodynamics. That really is the key to getting the car around the racetrack. You got to use aerodynamics to push that car down to make it handle, and you got to have the horsepower to push it through the air.
What about when you were driving? You guys were probably reaching speeds close to that, and your cars weren't nearly as aerodynamic as they were now. What did it feel like whenever you went down there at 195 miles an hour down and diving into turn 1?
Not very good. I mean, really, it was very scary going down in turn 1, having to turn that car and make it go the other direction, and it's a pretty violent turn in a stock car. You got to really wrestle that thing to make it go the other direction at 200 miles per hour.
Wow.
I mean, you really didn't want to turn the steering wheel.
Benny, we got an email for you. This one comes from Paul Friedrich of New York. He asked, could the Winston Cup cars go back to the stock height on the front air dam and reduce the speed enough to eliminate the restrictor plates?
I doubt it very seriously, Paul, because in 1987, Bill Elliott ran 210 miles per hour at Daytona, 212 at Talladega, and the cars today have about 100 more horsepower than Bill Elliott had, and they're more aerodynamic than Bill. So if we go back, we still got that 100 horsepower disadvantage that we've got to go through. So no, to keep the cars around 190 miles per hour, we'll always have to have a restrictor plate.
Going to spring another one on you here. John Herman of Georgia wants to know why NASCAR doesn't go with smaller tires on the big ovals. I guess he means slimmer tires, skinnier tires. He says it would put drivers back into the race, and he adds he wants to get rid of the restrictor plates too.
Well, I'm sure that everyone does, John. But that's something that NASCAR would have to work out with Goodyear. And Goodyear would have to go out and make molds for those tires. They used to have smaller tires, but I'm sure that Goodyear has jumped those molds that they had for those smaller tires because of space, so they'd have to make new molds, and they're just simply not going to do that. It would elevate the price of the tires to the point no one could afford them.
And some fines handed down in the NASCAR Busch Series, $500 to each Buckshot Jones, Eddie Pearson, Ricky Pearson, Dale Shaw. That was some actions that they took after the race at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Shane Hall, some fuel additive that was illegal, so they fined him $1,000. And Benny, quickly, fuel, what would you add to the fuel that would make it illegal?
I would guess they're just doing something, put in there to elevate the octane. I never, folks, I never fool with any additive, so I don't know the answer to that question. How's that?
Do you know the answer to the question of what do you think of Ron Hornaday now? 6 of the last 8 wins in the Truck Series.
Pretty awesome, isn't it?
Yeah. I tell you what, that's unbelievable. Benny, thanks a lot for coming by, and we'll see you again next week. Have fun at Michigan.
I will, John. Thanks.
All right, checking out the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series points. Jack Sprague continues to lead, but he's only 5 ahead of Rich Bickle. Look at Joe Ruttman, only 52 out, and Hornaday closes to within 84 points of the lead. We'll be right back.